Hello everybody, this is Dr. Frank Gomez once again, and we are on the Wellness Connection, and we're also on Facebook Live at Total Health Wellness Center. Plug that into your browser on Facebook and we will be there. So those of you who don't know who I am yet, again, my name is Dr. Frank Gomez. I've been a chiropractic physician for 32 years, and I've been involved in physical fitness actually longer than that. I was actually a personal trainer before I was even a chiropractor, and involved in a lot of sports. Although when I was younger, I wasn't the most athletic. I actually didn't start getting into my prime until I was late into my 20s. And we did a lot of bodybuilding, powerlifting shows, football, and things like that. My office is in Sayville, New York. It's 4844 Sunrise Highway in Sayville. It's actually between Smithtown Avenue and Lakeland Avenue, if anybody knows what Sayville is, and we're on the south side of the road right there. So again, been there for a long time, and we do wellness there. Not only chiropractic, we do wellness. And what is wellness? Wellness could be a lot of things, right? Wellness is things that you would think right away, right? Wellness is your body, right? Wellness is physical, but wellness it can be mental. It can be financial. Right? Well, how can financial be wellness? Because if your finances aren't, where you want them to be, and most people's aren't, but if they're subpar, really, and you're struggling every day, because 76% of the population live paycheck to paycheck. That can definitely have interference with the well-being, and that's what we're doing here, trying to help people increase their well-being, increase their knowledge, give them some information that they can take home with them. And also spirituality, right? So being at the church right now, right? churchtalkradio.com, you can pull that up on your computer also. We can listen to the audio part of that. And there's plenty of people here who are on that and have left, I guess you'd call them podcasts, on the site about spirituality and God, and plenty of information there that you can listen to. So today we're getting back to weight loss and fitness. Last week we had a guest. We talked about how self-motivation and self-confidence affects your wellness, and that was Virginia at Leadership Medics, so you can look that up, leadershipmedics.com. And so today, let's get back into the weight loss part of this, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we talked about a couple weeks ago. I'm just going to briefly go over carbohydrates, fats, proteins, what are they, what do they do. If you remember, we talked that those are the three main macronutrients that we all need to eat: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And we can start with fats, because fats actually get a bad rap. People think, you eat a lot of fats, and you're going to get heavy. Yeah, if you eat a lot of the wrong kinds, but our bodies actually need fats in our bodies to produce a lot of things in our bodies, right? To produce a lot of cells in our bodies. A lot of enzymes are produced by fats. So fats help carry a lot of non-water soluble, is that even a word? In water soluble nutrients through our bodies. The fats help carry that through. Coconut oil, peanut butter, almond butter. If you're allergic to peanuts, is almond butter. And actually, I'm going to put a little plug here for Costco. They have it's pretty cheap. It's like $9, man. You get a nice big jar of almond butter. You can use that. So where was I going with that? Okay, yeah, fats are important. So let's not cut the fats out of our diet. Approximately 40% of your diet should be made of fats, good fats. Avocados, nuts, certain berries and things like that. You'll be able to get those kind of fats. And then proteins. Proteins are huge in our body, right? Proteins are building blocks. Proteins, again, used to put together enzymes to help our bodies heal and run day-to-day activities as we break down, helps us repair. And then carbohydrates. Right? That's like a huge thing right now. But everybody's like, oh, you got to cut your carbohydrates down. You got to come down. Yeah, well, we do have to cut them down because the Western diet, it consists mostly of carbohydrates. If you just sit in front of the stores, even like a 7-Eleven store or something like that, and just watch, even when you go shopping, just watch what people buy. Like 80% of the foods that they have are all carbohydrates. And carbohydrates are the things that really will put the weight on you, because carbohydrates break down into simple sugars, because the body, that's what we use. We burn it for energy. The sugars go into our muscles, on our liver, and our liver changes all that to glycogen, and it's stored. Now, the only thing is with carbohydrates, there's only two things we can do with carbohydrates. We can use them and burn them, or we store them. And that's about it. That's all we can do with them. So when we have an incredible, unlimited, infinite amount of storage space in our body called fat cells. And, again, that's why we have the TV shows like My Big 600-Pound Body. It takes a lot of effort to get that heavy. And believe me, it takes a lot of effort to lose it too. Everybody wants to lose weight like really fast. Lose 10 pounds in a week. You know what? That's not a good idea. You didn't put 10 pounds on in a week. You sure don't want to lose it in 10 pounds in a week, because you're going to be unhealthy about it. It might even make you sicker. So you got to take that one step at a time. So again, you either burn carbohydrates like gasoline. Either you burn it or you keep it in your tank and then you store it. And the thing with proteins and fats, which are really cool, is they are interchangeable. Our bodies can change them. They can morph them into things that we need where we can't do with carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are like the gasoline, but fats and proteins are more like wood, right? We can burn it for energy. We can build it, right? We want to, especially if you're one of the in the gym and you want to build muscle. Proteins are necessary to build those muscles, but proteins are also necessary even if you're running, any kind of physical activities you do. You're going to break down your body, and proteins are definitely necessary to rebuild that. And the same thing with fats. So that was basically the talk that we had a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know, I'd mentioned about going online. You can see all kinds of different foods that you can eat as far as your body composition and where you want to be with that. But 40% definitely should be fats. Then you can be at 30% proteins, 30% carbohydrates, that kind of thing. But good carbohydrates, right? Yeah, you don't want to go to the store and buy a Twinkie, Funny thing with Twinkies, they've done a lot of research with Twinkies, believe it or not. It's the craziest thing, They have Twinkies in the bags, and they're 15 years, and they're the same. You pop open that bag and the Twinkie is the same. I think Twinkies can last a nuclear blast, man. Crazy. And people eat that stuff. Although I remember when I was a kid, I used to like Twinkies, But who the heck knew back then, that the stuff that we ate was important. Back then they told you what? They drink all the milk, right, and eat all the meat. And now we know, milk basically from a cow is definitely not good for us. So, don't want to do that. So that was a basic review. One more thing. We talked about, one of the things that I said is people say, well, you are what you eat, right? Yeah, but you are what you buy, too, more so than what you eat. Because if you're home and you have all these great snacks laying around, you're going to be chewing on them. I know for me, if I have, ice cream in the house, that's gone, man. That's gone. So, I try not to buy it every once in a while. I'll buy a little bit of it. But as long as it's not in the house, obviously, I'm not going to eat it. I'll look for something else more healthier to munch on. One other cool thing is at night, if you're an athlete, or not even an athlete, even if you're a weekend warrior, that kind of thing, and you want, to eat something before you go to bed, have a protein shake. Mix it with some water or some light milk maybe, and then you go to bed, because then your body will use that at night while you're sleeping to rebuild, help you rebuild. And people are, oh man, that's supposed to eat before you go to bed. Yeah, but if you understand how the body chemistry works, your body's going to use that protein, during the night, especially if you're sleeping 6, 7, 8 hours. You're going to be in that zone where you're going to start to fast a little bit, and your body will use that to rebuild. It's a cool thing. Plus, you're not hungry. Once you get something in your stomach, you're not going to eat those potato chips before you go to bed. Well, hopefully you're not going to eat those potato chips before you go to bed. Okay. Today, we're going to talk about flexibility. Why am I talking about flexibility? Because it's probably the biggest thing that people do not do in the gym. I see it all the time. I'll do it when I go home. Yeah, for me, if I ever say that, I'll do it when I go home, it's not happening. I'll do it later. Yeah, well, later is a funny word. Because later, I don't care what you're going to do later, usually leads to never. Right? So, flexibility, as far as your health goes and working out or if you're playing a sport, that's like 19% of your physical fitness is flexibility. All right. The other two aspects of it are what we know is, right, aerobic training. Right. Aerobic training is anything that puts a strain or a stress on your cardiovascular system. So you want to increase that. So that's what the aerobic part of it about. And then we're not talking about aerobics as far as burning fat, because if you're putting a strain on your cardiovascular system, you burn some fat. But if you're doing aerobics to burn fat, it's that slow-paced movement over a longer period of time. I was never a fan of that, even when I competed. I hated that. But and that's a good way to burn it, though. But you got to do it for at least 20 minutes, because once you hit that 20-minute mark, and either if you're walking, doing a stair climber or arc machine or whatever it is, then your body will start to break the fats, because it'll get through those quick carbohydrates and start taking the fats and breaking them down. And that's what we do. Again, when I competed, sometimes, especially in the beginning, I would do 2 to 3 hours every day just of cardio. Well, they call them aerobic back then, but now we call it cardio. It's two separate things. But just to get my body start to going, get the blood flowing. It also helps get the toxins out of your body. If you're training a lot, you do these things, CrossFit. CrossFit's great, but it cannot be sustained. It's something, there's so many injuries that happen with CrossFit, especially in the beginning. They may have tweaked it now, so I may be talking out of turn because I really don't really know too much about it right now. But when it first came out, man, it was massive breakdown of the body. And people kept doing it 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week. Yeah, you're going to break down and have some major injuries with that. So, be careful not to overtrain. Overtraining can be as bad as not training at all. So, again, cardiovascular is the thing, like jogging, or if you ever heard of HIIT, HIIT, high intensity interval training. That's really cool stuff. That's really easy you can go online and you can Google that, and because you can get so much done in a shorter period of time, right? It's like massive, like just say you're running or you're sprinting for like 30 seconds, 20, 30 seconds, and then you're resting for 10, 15 seconds, and you're sprinting. And you get that up and down, and that forces your body to compensate a lot faster rather than if you're just running sprints like straight up. And then there was the strength training. Again, we're going to talk a little bit specifically about aerobics down the line. Damn, having trouble talking today. Strength training. Now, that's usually what you think about when you go into the gym, the resistance training, using the machines, using the free weight and that kind of thing to build. Actually, if you think about it, strength training doesn't build anything. Right, it's the rest and the nutrition that you put in your body is going to build them. The strength training is made to break you down. People don't understand that. All right, and in my days, back in the early days, we used to really, really train ridiculously hard, train body parts twice a week. And nowadays, even the professionals don't do that. They train their body parts 1 time a week. And it was Lee Haney back in the late 80s. I think he was a Mr. Olympia like 6 or 7 times. And he coined the phrase, stimulate, don't annihilate. Right? Because we used to annihilate our bodies, It doesn't take that much to actually stimulate. And then you got to get proper rest, and you got to eat right, and then your body will recover for the next workout. So let's get back to flexibility. Well, when is the best time to do flexibility? to stretch, right? To elongate the muscles. It's definitely not in a cold muscle. You don't want to stretch first thing in the morning. Think of it this way: your muscles are like a sponge, right? So when you're using that sponge and you got the water in it and it's very pliable, you can twist it, you can move it around, and no problem, right? So if you take that sponge and you put it on the side and then you come back in the morning to use it, it may be a little damp, but it's going to be pretty dry. And you try to twist it, and it starts to fray a little bit. And that's what actually happens to our muscles when we start to stretch a cold muscle. You won't feel it right away, but what will happen is we'll get these microtremors. Microtremors is what builds up in our body as far as the breakdown goes, and they don't get a chance to rebuild, especially in the ligaments and tendons. Again, I can only speak from myself, but I've popped and ruptured a lot of tendons in my bodies for doing things a lot of ways the wrong way, right? Starting to train really heavy without warming up. Stretching, it used to be, stretch to warm up. That's what we were taught back then. You stretch to warm up, and that's a myth. That we found out that it's actually the other way. You want to warm up first before you stretch. So if you're into, flexibility and you're trying to do that, and you want to actually do that before, you do your aerobics, or you want to do that before you do your strength training, you still have to warm up. So, you can get on an elliptical machine or something and you do that for 5 or 10 minutes. Get the blood pumping, get your body temperature up a little bit, get those muscles moving, but you might say, oh, geez, I just was working all day and I have a physical job. Yeah, but you know what? Some of those muscles you're still using haven't been used, so you want to make sure you warm them up before you start to do any kind of stretching. Stretching is something that you should do every day, because our muscles shorten during the day. If you're out there doing exercise, or if you're doing some kind of heavy lifting, even if you're sitting in and you're at a desk job, I could just use one muscle group for that. So if you're sitting in a desk job all day, your hamstrings begin to shrink. Not shrink, but they shorten. Even if you go to the gym and you work out and you maybe run, they tend to shorten, because if you're working an 8-hour day and you're at your desk most of the day, you're not, and your legs are bent, you don't get a chance to stretch out your hamstrings. And doing that day after day, not 24/7, but 7 days a week if you're working a lot, or 5 days a week, or whatever you're working, and then you do that year after year, they become short, and then you can easily pull a muscle, right? Hey, how about this? You drop something off a counter and you go to pick it up, and all of a sudden you pull a hamstring. Like, how the heck did that happen? Well, that's why it happened, because the muscles were really short and they're not functioning properly. Also, when your muscles are really short, the blood flow in those muscles are not proper, right? So it's kind of like having a colander with a lot of the holes all being, taken up by some schmutz or whatever you got because you didn't clean it or whatever. That's your issue. And the water doesn't drain properly, right? So same thing with the muscle. You want the blood to constantly going through, cleaning it out, keeping it flexible, which will obviously prevent a lot of injuries. So, when it comes to warming up, you can ask yourself, well, do I take 5-10 minutes here to stretch for a warm up first, or do I take a chance of getting hurt and then being out of the gym for months? So you just got to be a little careful with that. It's an injury prevention thing. So, and that's an important part of them. I watch you guys at the gym, and I ask them all the time too. It looks like I'm getting a lot of messages on my phone. For those of you on Facebook, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm moving messages off of there. And they just like, we don't have time to, we don't have time to stretch. Well, you got to add that in. Again, it's 19% of your physical fitness. That's a lot. Summer's coming, right? Well, sooner or later it'll stop raining, and people will be outside doing, even chores, and they're doing yard work, or some of the people are involved in sports. They're going to play some tennis, they're going to play some softball, whatnot. And if those muscles are not functioning properly, you're going to injure yourself. And then you're going to be out of the game for a while. So we want to talk a little bit, about, well, how do you actually go about the process of stretching? There's so many different things you can do, and that nowadays we have the internet, which is you can find a lot of things to do, but everything should be done slowly. All right. So anytime you're doing some kind of a stretch, say we're doing something easy like a calf stretch, right? You're standing up and you got your arms extended onto a wall. You bent over a little. One foot is all the way planted up against the wall, and then you got a foot behind you. So it's almost, like a big, long stride. And you're trying to slowly bend at the waist and bend at the knees also. And you're stretching your hamstrings. And your hamstrings, your calf muscles. All right. So it's a very slow process. Once you start to feel that stretch is when you stop. Right? It's not like lifting. It's not like going strength training, right? Waiting for that burn and trying to get through the burn. If you feel that muscle starting to stretch and you try to push it a little bit beyond more than that, it's possible, again, you can get injured. And you can overstretch. Even after you go through your whole workout, you warm up and you just, you go through your training program and then you want to stretch afterwards, which for me actually is the best because you're totally warmed up by then. I overstretched my lower back a lot of times. There was one time when I was doing, had my legs out like scissors, and I was stretching side to side. I felt a little twinge, but it wasn't so bad, And then I got up and I was doing some more leg stretches, hamstrings, some splits. Getting to the splits, I don't really do the splits. And actually doing a full-on splits is really not that really good for your hip joints down the road, especially if you're going to continue to do any kind of physical fitness stuff. But so I did all that, and I'm sitting down on the floor, and I'm feeling great. And I'm like, oh, I had a good workout, got a nice stretch. I couldn't get up. My back. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Chiropractor hurt his back. Yeah, you heard it. The chiropractor hurt his back. And back problems are rampant. 85% of Americans have chronic back problems. So, you got, and then many reasons for that. A lot of it is just inactivity. A lot of it is overactivity. So you got to find out what's really good for you, where you fit in with all that. And when you're stretching, though, you don't want to bounce either. I see a lot of people trying to do that. They'll bend over, they'll hang, and then they'll try to bounce. You don't want to bounce because then you're causing a little bit of a ballistic movement. And unless you're used to doing that, like with martial arts kind of things, they're used to stretching that way. They're used to moving their muscles that way in that ballistic type of movement, fast and then back again. You can definitely hurt yourself that way. So you got to hold or stretch. So I'll give you an example. If you're standing straight up and you just want to kind of hang down and touch your toes, you take a deep breath in, you let it out nice and slow, and you just let your body relax and then stretch out and hold it for about 10 seconds. If you can hold it for longer than that, that's great. I try to hold a stretch probably between 20 and 30 seconds to stimulate what they call Golgi tendons to let go and lengthen those muscles. And then and then I'll do the other side, and I'll go back and forth, and I'll do them 10 times each. Each muscle group I'll do 10 times, or each stretching exercise that I do I'll do 10 times on each side, and then hold it. And you'll find is the more you do it, even in that one particular sitting, you'll find that you'll be able to go a little further, and a little further, and then you're all warmed up, and then you're done, and then you can go. So that's basically it with the structural stuff with the stretching. And if you do hurt your back, you can call me, Dr. Frank Gomez, Total Health Wellness Center in Sayville. My office number is 631-991-3492, and we are located at 4844 Sunrise Highway in Sayville. My website is totalhealthwellnesscenter.com. A lot of good information there, and we are redoing the whole site, so we're going to have a little additional information on there for you. So it's really cool stuff. If you have any questions, call my office, 631-991-3492. Whoever answers the phone, it could be Teresa, it could be Denise, Martha, Stacy, whatever. tell them, you saw Dr. Gomez on Facebook Live, or you heard him on churchtalkradio.com. You had a question about, weight loss or anything like that. I'll be more than happy to give you a call back and to go over that. So I guess that's it for today. Again, flexibility, very, very important. Please do not miss that. If you can't do it every day, if you're doing it, if you're training, make sure you're all warmed up. You don't want to stretch a cold muscle. You have to stretch a nice, warm, blood-flowing muscle. And that's it for today, people. It's really always my pleasure to come on Tuesdays at 12 o'clock and come talk to you.